Mr. Zainal Sapari.
Question 25, sir.
Speaker, sir, may I take the next 5 questions together?
Yes, please.
I also note that Mr. Murali Pillay has filed a similar question on this issue at the next sitting, so I hope my answer today will also address your question. MOE and the Singapore Examinations and Assessment Board, SEAB, decide on the standards and the award of grades for our national examinations. At the same time, we engage Cambridge Assessment to develop and mark our GCE and OA level examinations because they have strong global expertise and experience in these areas. This arrangement has worked well for many years. Each year, there are about 1.1 million answer scripts generated in the GCE level examinations. 300,000 answer scripts are marked locally in Singapore, while 800,000 answer scripts are marked by Cambridge Assessment. Cambridge Assessment in turn taps on about 2,200 professors and experienced educators from universities and higher institutions to mark the scripts. So therefore, if we were to mark all the scripts locally, it requires a very substantial amount of highly qualified resources. As these are required during the school vacation period, we need to be mindful too about the workload and well-being of our teachers if all subjects are to be marked locally, and also the tight timeline between examinations and the release of results. So over the years, Cambridge Assessment, they have also taken their role very professionally and seriously. For example, following the recent O-level additional mathematics incidents, Cambridge Assessment has reinforced the instructions given to the examiners on the handling and movement of the scripts. The examiner concerned will also not be engaged to mark scripts in future. Cannot be helped. Overall, this collaboration between MOE and Cambridge Assessment continues to be useful and necessary. The next question then is whether we can improve the situation by marking the scripts electronically to ensure the safety and integrity of the scripts and prevent future losses. In fact, since 2015 and before the recent incidents, SEAB and Cambridge Assessment have been working closely on a planned move to transit the distribution and marking of hard copy GCE level answer scripts to on-screen marking since 2015. There are many professional advantages. Tabulation of scores become much faster and efficient. There is no need to handle voluminous physical scripts. We can readily generate data to study how students perform in various tables, in various papers, sections, or even questions, which will help us improve instructions and teaching. Given the large number of answer scripts, the implementation of on-screen marking was carried out in phases. In 2017, we implemented this for GCE N-level examinations. In 2018, last year, this was extended to some GCE O-level examinations. Today, close to 65% of all GCE level written scripts were marked on screen already. By the end of this year, we are on track to mark on screen almost all of GCE level written scripts. Then from 2020, locally developed examination papers, namely GCE normal technical level basic mother tongue language and O-level literature in mother tongue language, will be marked on screen, and then more local papers will be included over the subsequent few years. There are some examination papers that are not suitable for on-screen marking. For example, science practical examination scripts cannot be marked on screen as these answer scripts may be contaminated with chemicals, which makes them unsuitable for scanning. Other examinations like drama or art are obviously also not suitable for on-screen marking. They will terrify Terrence. Right? Members have also asked if we could go beyond on-screen marking to conduct electronic examinations, on-screen examinations. There are a few examination boards that have implemented e-examinations. For example, the SAT test by a US college board for college admission. The approach in Singapore is to use e-examinations when there is clear benefit over paper-based examinations. For example, SEAB has already implemented e-oral exams across all levels for mother tongue language subjects. So we use video clips to set the context, and that enables a richer and more meaningful interaction compared to just showing a picture, which was what we went through probably. And this will be extended to the GCE N-level English in 2019 and O-level English in 2020. We have introduced computer-based writing examination as a pilot in a few subjects, such as a GCE O and A-level Mother Tongue Language Syllabus B, Paper 1, and GCE A-level H2 Mother Tongue Language and Literature. So far, the feedback has been positive as the candidates found the e-examination more engaging and authentic. It is possible that in time to come, more written examinations can be administered on screen as well. Students can more readily cut and paste, edit their essays, move paragraphs around. They can be asked to respond to an email, write a blog, or a social media post. All these better reflect real-life situations that students will go through later in life. But we are still some time away from that future. We need to take into account the readiness of schools and students. More importantly, notwithstanding the high computer penetration rate amongst our population, we should not inadvertently disadvantage students who may not be exposed to computers as much as others. Ideally, e-examinations needs to be aligned to the school's use of technology in teaching and learning. Let me conclude. Even as MOE, SEAB, and Cambridge Assessment work towards on-screen marking and e-examinations, let me emphasize that every system has risks. Going electronic will eliminate the risk of lost scripts, but new risks associated with electronic data will surface. So whatever system we adopt in future, we need to study the pros and cons carefully, proceed methodically, identify and ensure that risks are managed and mitigated to the greatest extent possible.
Dr. Intan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Minister, for the assurance of the steps that will be taken to ensure the integrity and security of our Cambridge exam papers. While we move towards more of e-examination, online marking, I think that will take still several years. Would we consider doing entirely all our GCE marking locally? You mentioned that, yes, it will require a lot more markers and teachers, but I think we do have the capability here, and wouldn't it be easier to fly in some of the markers and auditors from Cambridge to audit the marking, rather than leaving our papers overseas where our exam papers have been taken on board trains? That's why they were lost. Because when we do marking here, even for the PSLE papers, papers are not removed from the marking centers at all.
The consideration is a practical one. As I mentioned, Cambridge Assessment hired 2,200 markers. So we have the capability to do all the markings locally. I'm very confident of that. But considering that between examination and release of results is of a certain time, 2,200 additional markers are required. So while you save time transporting the scripts, the amount of resources is huge, and I'm quite mindful of the workload of teachers, especially during vacation, and we need to turn around this in a very short time. So on balance, the collaboration with Cambridge Assessment has been working well, notwithstanding these couple of incidents. I think they take their role very professionally. And I think while we have the next few years to move to e-marking, this is a collaboration that I think, on the whole, logistically, taking account the resources and costs required, is still worthwhile for us to do so.
Mr. Dennis Tan.
Thank the Minister for your answers. Just one supplementary question. Pending any future changes to the marking methods and the examination methods, since the last incident, has any new measures been taken to improve the transportation and delivery of the scripts to UK and back to Singapore? Thank you.
The protocol is all there, that once a marker has scripts in their hands, they're not supposed to leave it behind. And I think this is what happened in this particular incident. A bag was left behind, and someone mistook the bag, and then he lost the little scripts. And so Cambridge assessment took this very seriously. I think it's a very unfortunate lapse. They have since tightened the instructions, conveyed to all the markers. The marker who was involved, he wouldn't be engaged anymore. And I think with their efforts, a constant reminder, we'll tighten the process and make sure we mitigate such risks to the minimum extent possible.
Dr. Intan?
Minister, just one more question, maybe not quite directly related to this current questions that you're managing right now, but just looking at the risk, the potential risk of such summative assessment formats, such as the GCE exams, would we consider going forward to minimize the dependence on such summative assessment formats and look at more at how we can balance such summative exams with students' portfolio, for instance? Because for the students whose exam papers are missing, they get a certain prorated grade, which they feel that sometimes it's fair, sometimes it's not quite fair. But if they have a student portfolio, they know that it's their work built up over time that they can depend on for admission to the next entry level in their education journey.
Well, it is a question about summative versus formative assessment. If we have more formative assessment, more regular tests, there is more risk of losing scripts, I think. But I think it's a valid question on the direction that education is going. I think given our system today, summative assessment will still play a big role, I think. Because from primary moving to secondary, the system depends, and parents, students depend a lot on PSLE for allocation of secondary places, and from secondary moving to JC or Poly, again you rely a lot on summative assessment. But I think what we ought to move towards is at the admission level, that beyond looking at that summative test result, can we look at portfolio, as you mentioned, performances in other areas outside of academic. So therefore, DSA scheme, EAE schemes that we have introduced and refined over the years, all this will help towards a move away from over-relying on summative tests. Yeah.
Associate Professor Walter Teixeira.
I thank the Minister for his reply, and I appreciate his concern for the workload of his staff and the teachers. At the autonomous universities, we have to complete all our marking locally within a very short span of time as well, and it's a very stressful period for all of the faculty. But I wonder if the Ministry could commit, for example, to studying this issue of the cost of actually arranging for all of the marking locally. What would be the cost implication of doing that, for example, versus the current arrangement with Cambridge assessments? And the reason why I ask this is I think there should be no question internationally about the credibility of our examination system if it were to be done all locally. I think Singapore has established a good reputation in that regard, and I'm confident that if we were to do it locally, we should have no issue with the reputation of our students' credentials. Thank you.
Couple of points. I think first, it may well be a moot point because by end of this year, we would have substantially moved everything to electronic marking. So the whole concern about transport of scripts, which really how underpins this concern, it will not arise. But as I mentioned earlier, moving away from scripts, you will mitigate and you will eliminate the risk of losing scripts, but moving to electronic marking, you will surface a new set of risks. Yeah. But I think the deeper question is this collaboration with Cambridge assessment. I fully agree with the member that Singapore's reputation in education, the regard internationally for our education system, we are at a good position to do this ourselves and harness the resources to mark the papers, set the questions. But I think we are where we are too because of a certain earnestness to learn from different systems around the world and to work with different credible, reputable systems around the world. And working with Cambridge has been such an approach that we have taken. Many, many years of working with them, Cambridge helped us raise us to this level and this level of international reputation. So I think it is a collaboration that I think is still worthwhile keeping while mitigating the risk of lost scripts.